Hello. I'm sorry I can't. I'm not. Just a moment. Ah, there you are. I'm adding this addendum to the Gene Hafner footage because I wouldn't want to exhaust myself writing an email. Despite my best efforts, Gene didn't seem to be particularly capable of getting jaunty on camera. There's 1 hour of footage here, and I suspect you'll be able to extract certain portions that you find to be agreeable. And if you want to allocate any measure of it to me, I'll be happy to do that also. I had to wait a small period before I decided just to attach this video, because I was really pissed off by the time everything ended. Gene doesn't seem to hold me in the greatest esteem, nor this project. And I think if you pay attention to her behavior at the end of part 2, when she terminates the interview, that she seems rather ambivalent about the whole thing, and I would rather she had declined to participate than to participate half-heartedly. Luckily, I put a great deal into, well, we all did, into persuading her to allow the spotlight to be shown upon her, and the result is that there's a ton of stuff there to work with. Also, you'll note that I'm doing a quick test run of the advice we're giving to people who want to make submissions, and that'll be a lot less serious. And really disappointed, I have to say. Wow, suddenly I'm acting like Gene. All deadpan and no fun. But it is a bummer. She would consistently be pretty convivial for her off camera, and then the minute I turned it on, she well, and around those periods, she would be very controlling, at the same time not taking any initiative. But I can learn some valuable stuff from this, and that's all that matters. Maybe I'm just really tired and need fresh eyes on this, because no, well, at this stage I'm not having to bite my tongue, but man, I was mad, you guys. I felt like, well, she was dissing the whole thing. And when I say the whole thing, I mean the whole thing. Which is why I really quickly threw up a cheap Canon camera and this camera, and I'm going to do a very short how-to on shooting yourself. You know what I mean. On making your submission look a little bit better, as per the short video we made. I mean, web page, you know, I think maybe Gene just way overthinking. I tried to tell her, you know, not to give any forethought into what she was going to say, and it would be more genuine and spontaneous. But here I am trying to remember all those little complaints, gripes, and whiny things I had to say. So I can understand. I just suddenly had a striking moment of empathy. But David and Eileen, this is a long video, and I think we can make it work. I'll shut up now. I'm going to do some other quick stuff, and it'll be on a YouTube channel. David, get a little mini version that's phone friendly. And that's about it. You know, I sent this only to y'all, the Windows into the EU producers, so whenever you think it's appropriate, you can pass that along to your superiors, or you can bounce it back to me for refinement and editing, and I'll be happy to do that. And so let me see what's going on here. Oh no, you didn't. Okay, David, there's somebody. Yeah, what? That they have some strange customs in China, I'll tell you that. And Eileen, there's a Bigfoot in a redwood forest near your house. Anyway, talk to you later, guys. Bye. I know what you mean.
There's no going
back. Kind
back.
of thing where I might throw in my 2 cents, but it's like, I know what you mean. Could you tell me a little bit more about how it fills your life, or fulfills your life?
We never got to that yesterday.
Yeah, let's go there.
Are you filming?
Possibly.
Let's see. Well, I spend every day thinking about it and learning about it. And there's a lot more yet to go. And there's every subject from geology to mythology to celestial mechanics. That's an area that I really want to focus on. And the electrical parts, to the extent that I can. It's a complicated theory, to just sorting out what an electric field is compared to what particles are, ions traveling. Even that is complicated.
It is. It's worth it.
I have to kind of pick and choose.
I took linear circuits, AC/DC circuits, and it, oh my God, so satisfying.
Yeah.
Very, very hard though.
Right.
You know, like resistors, capacitors,
Sure.
inductors.
Yeah.
Magnetic induction is an amazing thing.
Yeah, they're related. Inductors and capacitors are related.
I'm working my way up to you know, like Maxwell's equations, Lorentz.
Oh, okay. The Lorentz transformation.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, to actually be able to do math.
Uh-huh. I guess I don't have that ambition. I just want to know the effect. And, you know.
Well, we're all impacted differently.
Yeah. I have a strong desire to understand bioelectricity. And more about water. I'm fascinated by water.
Sure.
That it can actually behave like plasma. I find that incredible. That bioelectric devices can heal. And how that happens. So that's probably the direction I'll go.
Did you construct one of those things from Bob Eckel?
I did. Bob
Looks
Beck.
like 4 hertz or something. Or
You mean the power supply?
I mean the frequency of the
The pulses? Oh, I'd have to look that up. But
Square or
the
sine.
point was they were square waves.
Squares? Okay. Use a function generator, or do you just go buy some parts?
I just simply followed the circuit diagram.
Okay.
This is the first time I created a circuit.
Fun, huh?
Yeah, and I got a little soldering iron that has fine points that you can do good, neat circuits. So I made 2 of those, and it took a long time because
Have you used it?
I didn't understand. Yeah, I've tried to use it. I've fiddled with it.
I thought if I was going to do that, I'd make one that completely transfuses my blood. Like exsanguinates me completely, and then.
That has been done.
Yeah, I know. I like it. Do.
That's pretty radical. I don't think that's.
You only live once.
Oh dear.
A couple of Coke bottles, you know. Can you imagine?
Oh dear. Let's see. What else am I doing? Some of the people that I want to read some more, because you have to read over a number of times. Anthony Peratt, his work.
Sure.
And Ralph Jurgens.
I went after some Peratt stuff, and it's all pay to play. At least what I found. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
It's
hate that.
through the IEEE.
Yeah. Or maybe through Los Alamos. I can't recall. But
Probably the IEEE.
they put like a little teaser where you get the first page or something.
You get an abstract.
And I'm like, whoa. Yeah, that was disappointing.
Actually, one of his co-authors lives in town, Wing-Fei Yao, and I tried to look her up, and I found her house, but there was nobody there. Like, moved away, but still,
Still listed
just
there.
sort of empty.
Weird.
I thought that was very strange.
So you really get out and kind of
I'm definitely involved.
and is there any special role you'd like to play in making your? Would you tell us a little bit about how we feel like we're making a contribution to humanity?
Sure. And how I might see myself making a contribution?
Yes.
That's a good question. Well, I'm an advocate everywhere I go. And I think what I'd like to do is focus people's attention more on plasmasphere interactions and not so much attention on comets. In other words, planets, okay, and look at that very closely. And along with that, I'd like for people to look at celestial mechanics.
I can see why you're so fond of Ben Davidson with his Earth files.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I would even like to see a course in celestial mechanics for EU enthusiasts.
That would be cool.
That just occurred to me just now.
Now this would be including the effects of the charge as far as it affects the motion of the body. I'm sure there's some measure.
That too.
Cool.
But beyond that, just the machine-like workings of the solar system, very, very predictable. And just to understand that, I understand that it can be sort of like child's play if you understand it, and it's not that difficult. You see models working, understand the phases of the moon, simple things like that we should have learned in about 8th grade, but we didn't. I wasn't given a course in that. Were you?
Newtonian mechanics?
Not Newtonian.
No.
Celestial. The movement of the planets.
No. The short answer is no, but at tractor-only models, you have no ability to rehabilitate a system, and it will always tend towards entropy. So that's one of the big problems with modeling more than two gravitational bodies. They tend to go chaotic at any given time.
Okay, well, all of these things would be covered, right? People's questions, students' questions. I think it'd be great. An institute.
So you're saying teaching is where your heart lies.
I don't know where my heart lies exactly.
Sounds like teaching to me.
It's just what I'm used to doing.
Natural teacher, facilitator.
Facilitating. Because I want for people to do their own learning, do their own thinking, and handle three-dimensional objects. I'm a very strong believer in that.
Oh, wow.
I taught chemistry, actually biomolecules using models.
Sure.
Now that was all the company made the parts and they knew what they were doing. But none of the teachers had done it, and so I ordered about $1,000 worth of parts and devised about a 3-week series of lessons. Taught the other teachers how to do it, and I was learning from scratch for myself. How to take something on paper, a picture, a diagram, a structural diagram of a molecule,
Sure.
and then turn it into a model. It's not as easy as you might imagine.
Oh, I reckon not. Those are pretty complex little doodads.
Yes.
Now,
And you get your ups and downs and your angles wrong, and
it sounds like as a teacher, you were passionate. You're very interested in your impact on people, on the community, on students, on humanity.
mm-hmm.
And so, what's striking is that somebody who feels such a sense of responsibility
Mm-hmm.
would change paradigms, essentially change paradigms to the electric universe. Can you talk about that?
I didn't understand your question.
Well, it's not really a question, it's more of a prompt.
We're talking about a paradigm shift,
Right,
and we're talking about responsibility.
right. So it says to me that it's to the credit of those who devised the electric universe theory, to their credit that you would come on board.
Okay, I think let me just answer it this way, that I'm also aware of resistance to change.
Yeah, that was my next question. What kind of obstacles?
Yeah, I'm
you
aware of the
imagine
kinds
are
of
real?
the kinds of obstacles that would be faced. And so my best advice is to find people who are already interested and to support them and turn them into leaders. So you develop people who are already interested, people that go to the conferences already, and corner them and work with them and build it from there.
Can you tell us about this institution and your relationship to it?
Oh yeah, we're here at one of the branches of Central New Mexico Community College, where I worked for about 25 years, and I taught chemistry for college prep level chemistry, college prep level biology, and other courses. Great place. There was a lot of freedom. It used to be called TVI, Technical Vocational Institute. Everybody in Albuquerque knows TVI because everybody's had someone who's been helped by it.
Oh, I've been going to school here since it was TV.
Yeah.
It feels like it though.
Yeah, it's one of the best kept secrets. We used to be able to, students could come and pay absolutely nothing. We even provided books. No tuition, no book fees.
Oh, wow.
A $20 fee, I think, was the registration
With
fee.
the continuing ed stuff.
That was the vocational courses.
Oh, neat.
You could become an LPN, you could become a
And it's no longer
truck
provided.
driver. What's that?
Not doing that anymore?
Yeah, those courses are still extreme. As far as I understand,
Oh,
those
good.
courses are very inexpensive.
Oh, yeah. I've been, as soon as I get somewhat situated, I tend to continue with the electrical circuit thing.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And the people that were in industry. so they're not trained as teachers except in a, just a quick way, just enough to know how to do it. And they know the subject.
Yeah. So, so you didn't take the step lightly.
The step of changing to the electric universe?
Correct.
Oh no.
Did it weigh on you? I remember you telling me a story about
Yeah.
being faint after.
Oh.
Can you tell me about the whole thing with Ben Davidson, suspicious observers?
Okay.
Tell me the whole story.
All right. Well, I had been watching the sun for quite a few years, noticing changes in the sun. And doing my own research. I retired and I had lots of time. So I was researching all kinds of subjects, turning over rocks, you name it. Anything from health to finance to just everything. And I ran across Ben Davidson's Suspicious Observer podcast. He recommended Thunderbolts Project and to watch Symbols of an Alien Sky. And I saw that, I was just very moved. It was extremely convincing. I have to say the Anthony Peratt material was kind of the clincher. It's completely irrefutable.
Very, very well made argument.
That's right, that the petroglyphs, at least, about 40% of them at least, represent an apparition in the sky, glowing plasma. And so I continued to do more reading avidly, and came to the part where the sun is getting its power from the outside. And the implications of that were so profound that, I don't really have time to go into it all. But it overwhelmed me what that meant. And I knew, they say that you can't have truth forced on you, that it dawns on you. And that's one of those moments when truth dawned on me, that this was right. And so I just became very sleepy. I was overwhelmed and I had to take a nap for a couple of hours. And then I was back at it, into the wee hours of the night.
So it was something of an instantaneous...
A realization.
Wow. Would you say something kind of maybe primordial in you? Realize that, that there were events in the past for which we have a frame of reference now. Because I love that.
Perhaps so. When you find that human beings are so obsessed with custom and what's sacred and the myth and religion, they're completely obsessed with it, and the afterlife.
There's no good explanation for that. Under a uniformitarian kind of existence. But if everybody was terrified and
that's right. If there were
killed.
terrifying, that's right. If there were events,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, thanks.
It's yeah.
If there were events in which, whole continents of people were destroyed, and it was somehow, maybe a few survived and to tell the story, they're going to be pretty much focused the rest of their lives on getting that information recorded and out to the others. That's going to be their whole purpose in life from then on.
I agree.
Because how do you prevent that? Okay. I also think that the series of catastrophes that occurred were the means by which we developed our consciousness. And where we are today. So in a sense, we can thank the
Tying it to the breakdown of bicameral mind? Or?
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. I mean, when you study the kinds of behaviors that we saw in people, hi, they were just slaves to these images. You know, they take them, offerings, and they really did see themselves as slaves. Another good example are the stelae in Yucatan. They're images of huge men-like, forms, and then they're standing on a platform and there's slaves underneath them. At the time, I thought that was literal. I thought that was like that these beings were people, but they were not. These were the gods, and they were planets.
And they were capricious.
Yes, that's right. And the Mayans determined to control the movement of the sun. That was their purpose, was to control the movement of the sun so that they would be able to predict when these events would happen.
Yeah.
Because that was the life and death. It was a life and death thing. They had to do
literally.
it. And
then, as David Talbot put it, the explosion of imagination that arose from that. And there's been no period like it of myth making. Universal.
yeah, everywhere in the world. And that's another really wonderful thought, is that people around the world saw the same thing, and that is why you have pyramids in different places. You have a lot of similar icons. One of the things around the world, because they saw the same thing, one of the things that I've noticed, some small details that I find very interesting. In statues, extremely long ears. Another feature you see are multi-banded necklaces. And you see this in the American Southwest, you see it in Asia, you see it in Africa. The same idea. In fact, many, many bands around the neck. See it in Australia too. And extremely long fingers. You see this in Easter Island as well. Long, thin fingers. To me, that has nothing to do whatever with human beings. This is what they saw in the sky. They thought it was a god. And just to put a bug in your ear, I think these were toroids, stacked toroids. The bands and the fingers. It depends on how they interpreted the god as to whether they were fingers, or whether they were necklaces, or
So
eyebrow.
you had a prior interest in anthropology and other cultures?
Well,
When you saw symbols,
that's been more of a recent passion.
Okay. Isn't it interesting how everything becomes new?
Yeah, it sure does. And Easter Island has particularly caught my attention.
That is a really, really neat situation. That the script, the Moai script, whatever it's called.
Oh, you mean the Rongo tablet?
Rongo, yeah.
Yeah, the figures, the written down figures.
Right,
And
it's
what
the
they
statues that are called the Moai, right?
Actually, the moai are the platforms on which the statues rest, but a lot of people call the statues moai. And they have the red top knot, and they have the strange faces. Well, Peratt points this out, that those strange faces and the triangular nose and everything, that's called a quadrupole. That is a plasma or a high energy density type of a discharge form. And so, when you translate the high energy discharge form and look at the statues, the petroglyphs and all of these things, and just squint your eyes a little bit and use your imagination, you can sort of see, oh yeah, the central stalk is the body, the horizontal lines they could be ribs, A lot of the forms are two white balls, two white circles, and those will show up under the ears as earrings. And they'll show up on the sides of the hips in New Zealand, in the costumes. Shows up on the sides of the petroglyphs, either side of the squatter man. What is that? That's that toroid.
Do you intend to travel to these destinations? Would you like?
I would like to go to see the Lascaux cave. The caves in France.
Oh.
The Neolithic.
Sure, the paintings.
I'm sorry, the Paleolithic paintings.
Of the animals or the ones that came just after?
The ones that those came before.
Right.
There's a lot of
So
petroglyphs in the
weird
Southwest.
stuff, yeah.
I mean, I have no shortage of them here. There's about 15,000 of them on the West Mesa. So,
They're all over the place.
and there's a bunch down by Abo. So I don't have any shortage of petroglyphs. But I have not seen the Paleolithic paintings. I'd like to see those. I'd love to go to any of these places.
Yeah, it's weird how you see things that everything starts to fit.
Everything does start to fit. It starts to fit together, and it seems to unite humanity. That's one of the things I find very hopeful, is that we would find this common reason why we are like we are, and that we could heal from that.
Maybe they would find reason, period.
Find reason. Well, ultimately, I would hope that we could get back to the golden era, that it really was real, and maybe it's possible again.
I don't see why not. Are you familiar with like any of this biblical prophecy, this stuff about the sun being blackened for 3 days?
Yeah, you mean in Revelation?
The moon turning to blood,
Yeah.
and then the new heaven and the new earth, and all of that suddenly has a new kind of,
It takes on a whole different meaning,
like we're
doesn't it?
going back to the golden age. Mm-hmm. But first there'll be terror and catastrophe and darkness.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Totally sensible now.
very sensible. And also the books of Daniel and Isaiah tell the same story. You take a lot, I mean, I give those prophets a lot of respect. And you read it with new eyes, through new lenses, and all of a sudden it makes a whole lot more sense.
I've been drawn in so many directions that I haven't really done much Bible study since my conversion to EU. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm sure when I do eventually go back there.
So, I don't even know how to word or convey how confusing that is. I mean,
one of the things that, we were talking on the way in is you suddenly have a context for these fearful kind of damnation-based religions.
mm-hmm.
And so I've been describing myself as an atheist, but I think I'm like a post-Christian. I got very much out of being a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to retain all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if there is some man who's risen from the dead, he's not going to have a problem if I'm skeptical about that.
Yeah. I mean, those are deep questions.
Yeah. Oh, the metaphysics that is kind of opens up all this.
Yeah.
Do you were you practicing any particular religion?
I think I'll abstain from those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, didn't mean to get so personal.
Huh?
I didn't mean to get too personal.
No, it's fine.
You were talking about something about Moses.
Oh, well, the biblical accounts, they are absolutely to be regarded, actually at face value a lot of the times. But you have to understand they're talking about planets, or you have to sort it out. Or, are you talking about which ones?
Adam and Eve or Welcome?
Oh,
Did you tell me that one?
I don't think I'll go into that one. You want me
That
to?
was really good.
well, I don't want to get my facts wrong.
Now, is this something you kind of conjecture of your own, or is it something?
No, this comes from John Cook.
Oh,
That Adam was Saturn, the planet Saturn, and that Eve was born of Adam. In other words, Venus was born of Saturn and connected by a plasma rib. You know, you can just imagine sort of this plasma stream developing a little planet,
yeah.
and Eve being born of Adam. Makes sense to me.
But, you know, considering the company, you would have an agreement on that. You know, Rand's, Talbot,
Yeah.
Duarte, probably.
I don't know. I haven't heard that from them.
I think they're all pretty good with the finding the points of agreement in far-flung cultures
Yeah.
and their myths.
But I had the understanding that there was a lot of people that believed Venus was a comet. I know Venus has a very, very long plasma tail. But other than that, I don't think it really qualifies as a body from outer space that had a long elliptical orbit. I don't think it qualifies in any way as a comet.
So you don't favor the captured planet?
No, not for Venus.
You know, I'd always thought of it as a both novel or new and captured.
It's new. I don't think anybody disagrees about that except
Right.
Carl Sagan.
What I kind of favor myself is the two planetary groups, Saturn being the luminary of one, Sol being the luminary of the other, and they collide, and then everything's in a jumble until it settles down.
Well, I attended the last 3 conferences. In which Thunderbolts presented, and the last one was when I was helping with conference planning and got very involved and spent a lot of time on that. Part of the planning involved getting Jonathan Wolf involved, and he presented a special version of his Fractal Friday show for our crowd, and I loved that. I felt that there was really nothing better to clinch the idea of fractals to this crowd than his show. And before that was in January of 2013, and there I showed a few scholars around town and tried to come up with places that were electric universe friendly and relevant. And we looked at, well, we collected magnetite in an arroyo with my device that picks it up.
I'm sorry, what's the device?
It's a magnetic collection device.
Like an electromagnet?
It's a big magnet, just a big magnet that lets go of pulls up the sand, and then you let go of it with a lever.
Does
So
this
it's-
come in like a nugget form?
Magnetite? It's iron filings.
Oh, see, okay, you're filings out.
Yeah. And we visited John Maluski's home laboratory, and he showed them around and talked to them about
Oh,
science.
I love John Belushi. Too bad what happened to him that Saturday Night Live. John Belushi, who is that?
Maluski. He is a metallurgist, retired metallurgist from Los Alamos Labs. And he's an experimenter, an independent researcher. Yeah.
Did I tell you why I built a capacitor bank in the backyard?
No.
7 kilowatts.
You need to be
of
careful of that.
instantaneous. It's very dangerous. Luckily, I've had, a decent amount of introductions, just simple linear circuits.
Okay, good. Well, capacitors do what they do.
Well,
They
you
hold
wanna
a
do
charge.
things like you want to make sure that you leave them short.
Yeah, okay. Well, just keep it
Because
in
then
mind.
the plates can't deliver charge if they're short.
Yeah.
So as a, I may be somewhat discreet, but when it comes to safety, I'm very into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And we went to the top of the Sandias, and from there you can see Cabezon, which is a very interesting geological form that looks like it was pulled right out of the ground, and I think it was. And a lot of little volcanic peaks that looks exactly like what you'd see on the surface of Mars or the moon. Fulgamites, that's right. So, volcanoes are, to me, an electrical phenomenon, not anything that we typically are told. Let's see.
So we all love Ben. So you were like, I used to go to the Soho website and some of the others, the Stereo Heliocentric Observatory. And
Yeah.
since he clears all the data together now, I can't remember the names of the individual. Offhand, what are some of the others? Of NASA's solar observatories and like
Oh, Enlil Spiral.
Enlil, that's it. And there's another
Goes.
yeah. Yeah, I used to go there and browse. Did you ever do that? No, you just picked up Ben directly?
Yeah.
After watching How to Watch the Sun a couple of times. Very important.
Yeah. Yeah, my watching of the sun was me as a person watching the sun.
Did you have a chance to talk to Ben or kind of shower on congratulation?
I did talk to Ben, and I offered to coordinate when they come through Albuquerque in January. So perhaps maybe you'd like to go.
Oh,
Maybe you'd like to do the coordinating.
I would get a picture and then me and him together. For history, I think Ben's going places.
Yeah.
But I mean, also just because he's a real nice guy,
Yeah.
which is how I feel about him.
Yeah, we have a good group.
Well, I'm more inspired amateur and less Philistine these days. So. You know what I mean? The backyard stuff, take a clue from Alberts. Billy.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe dangerous, but really fun to like little things. Man, I'll stop hogging the conversation. Tell me some more about what were we just talking about?
We were talking about Ben
Velikovsky
Velikovsky.
and human trauma and history.
Yeah, he coined the phrase cultural amnesia and believed that mankind was suffering from a kind of collective trauma. Amnesia, could not remember having gone through catastrophes. I think he's completely right about that. And that as a species we're suffering from a lot of neuroses from having had catastrophes. We don't understand why we do what we do. We don't understand our history. I believe that all of those things could be cleared up if we did.
I think you would be qualified in that department given it's going to shrink. Did you introduce
Oh.
yourself?
Yeah,
You did.
I think so.
Are you sure? Very good.
I think I did. But if not, somebody else can introduce me.
No, we'll just do it one more time. It's like we're going to cut it up. We're going to have like an hour footage here.
All right. So, I am Jean Hafner, I'm a relative newcomer to the electric universe model. It's only been 2 years since I've been studying it, but I've been a very avid student. I retired from teaching, and so I've had time to devote to the subject. I spend every day working on it, at least a little bit, and have become a strong advocate for it. It's such a huge model that accounts in such sensible ways for so many different things and reaches into every subject. Every subject. It would energize the sciences, it would energize students. It's worthy of all of our attention and expertise, our resources. It's
Well, as Dr. Claridge put it, provide us with a genuine cosmology.
yes, a genuine
Complete
cosmology. Right. That's right, an authentic one.
Where everything is not just compartmentalized to space, big, strange, fairy dust doing magical things in the sky.
And there's still plenty of mysteries. There's still the fundamental nature of matter is still very much a mystery. What role gravitation plays, what it is exactly, that's all very mysterious still.
What other people, maverick scientists in particular, has your investigation led you to?
Maverick scientist, yeah, John Cook. He's my mentor that I've been studying with for 2 years. He's an author of an online book on this subject. Very gracious and very helpful.
Is he the fellow with the physics thing?
No, that's another fellow, Dewey Larson. Dewey is no longer with us, but his theory is called the reciprocal system. And that, I think, is worthy of attention as well. And it really rang home to me that he was critiquing the ad hoc explanations that chemists have for chemical bonds between atoms. They're very ad hoc. And one of the big problems was what do you do about metals that typically want to make positive ions? How do you account for how they make a solid? That doesn't seem to make sense in the...
Oh, we're moving into your purview here.
Yeah,
so
and
with chemistry,
there are some problems, unanswered questions there that...
And ad hoc, you would say?
Ad hoc explanations, covalent bonds, ionic bonds, polar bonds, and so on. They seem to work pretty well, but, it's not clean and neat by any means.
So maybe for those who were just starting to look at, say, Dr. Pollock's work, to realize there might be a lot more going on, or there's something fundamentally missing.
Yeah, I would have them take a look at Dewey Larson.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to be a voter.
Well, and they have to really work on their mental construct of how the world works, because it's real challenging to not think of objects moving through space. You have to think of things differently. So
this is something that's really intriguing you.
Yeah, it gives me a headache.
Well, anything worth doing will.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice were you ever dissatisfied? Talk to me a bit about your experience as a chemistry teacher and maybe looking back and how you see it differently. That you didn't recognize the ad hoc, or if you did, or you're saying something about it.
I did want to mention something about that. Well, the ad hocery of it, yeah. I haven't thought about this enough to.
Well, you were saying something. You were dissatisfied about the process for making reinforced glass, and why we didn't.
Oh, well, that has to do more with that consumers don't have access to the very best that's possible. I mean,
when it's manufactured would be.
When it's manufactured is possible, we're not privy to the discoveries that we as a public have paid for through our taxes.
Can you tell me again about how you were describing some specific process?
Well, I was just talking about a film that I rented or borrowed to show my chemistry students, and one segment of the film showed how glass is manufactured using metals to reinforce the glass. I'm not talking about threads, anything like that. I think, I don't know.
Every third molecule or something like that.
I don't know
Not unlike
how
that.
they do it, okay? But the nature of the glass changes when you incorporate some metals in there. And this, the example here was potassium and sodium, and those two glass sheets, and they dropped some huge heavy object on the glass, and it didn't break. So that's an example of a glass that might be used for a bulletproof vehicle or something. Well, and the glass that I've been noticing more and more is softer and softer. Double pane glass is so soft that you can scratch it with a scrubber, and you have to wash it only with a sponge side. It scratches it. That's how soft it is. That's one of those connections you make in life, and you go, something's very strange about that.
Semiconductor manufacturer.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
It doesn't sound dissimilar.
what a big field, The manufacture of ceramics, glass, materials of all kinds.
Yeah.
That's a huge subject.
Did we talk about how the quality of the sun has changed in your personal anecdotal experience? You did a long time gardening.
Okay, about the sun. The first time I noticed that the sun seemed brighter was when I realized I had to buy a car that had air conditioning. Whereas before, I was always satisfied with having the windows down. And then driving into the western sun seemed more and more painful. And you could say, oh, well, that's just you getting older. But then, if you look around, if you did some data on it, I think you'd find that more cars are made with tinted windows. And the whole tinting system has grown. Tinting glass. I've been a gardener forever, and now I have to put a cover, a shade, a lath house over my garden to keep it from dying in the middle of the summer because it's so bright. And you'll notice that driving down and looking at the organic farms, they have row covers over their plants.
Do you think that's attributable to one of the problems with the standard model of stellar evolution is the stars can be very highly variable. Our star in particular, in other than
variable
light.
depending on their input.
Well,
The input of the current coming from outside.
So do you think we're getting more
That's
X-rays? It'd be interesting to find out. Wouldn't it?
There's two obvious things to me to look at. One would be we're getting more input, more electrical input. The other would be that the atmosphere of the Earth is thinning, which would make it look like the sun was brighter. There's evidence for that. There's evidence for the other one as well. So it looks like both are true. And if the former, getting more input from the outside, you would expect the other planets to experience changes, and they are. As far as I understand, that is true.
Ben Davidson has on several occasions pointed out chemtrails in the sky in his reports. Do you think there's no legitimacy to that?
Mm-hmm.
So you think that governments are trying to mitigate the atmosphere or change it? To what end?
That's a big subject. I think I will pass on that one.
Can you tell me if you've experienced it firsthand or seen it?
I have, firsthand, absolutely.
In what way?
You look out, you go out in the morning, you look put your face up and you look for planes, little tiny white planes, and what appears to be contrails coming out. And that will develop into what looks like a mare's tail. And the sky gets more and more cloudy. And eventually, what used to be a sunny New Mexico is more like a cloudy New Mexico. Hazy.
Yeah, and you know what's weird is I've actually seen them come all the way down to ground level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still rather, not too diffuse that you can't see it if you're looking through it. You got at least like very, very fine powder markings.
Yeah, we were giving a workshop once down at main campus, and walked out of the building, and it was so smoggy, just thick, just like soup. And we thought, what is going on? At that time, I didn't know about them. Now I, would have an explanation for them that day.
I've learned anything, it's not to balk at something that sounds unconventional, at least not immediately. At some point you may be able to balk or somebody's not making sense, but, following consistent logic. All right, you are a person who's trained to promulgate, as it were, standing conventional scientific theory. So what gives, can you give us any insights into what you think may be behind the inertia that we see in educational institutions, such as NASA, elsewhere, and feel free to be, verbose about it.
Okay.
I'm
You're talking about the resistance to change.
Yeah, whether real or imagined.
So let's talk about education first, just the typical classroom.
Yes, please.
We try to do different things in our classrooms all the time. And depending on how it's broached, the students may be all for it. If you can make a good case for why you're doing what you're doing, they will listen. They're just wonderful. On the other hand, if you don't make a good case for it and you are waffling, such as you say, well, there's this other theory that we want to bring in and contrast with what you're learning now, you could flub, you could fail on that, or you could succeed. But typically the students want you to be confident. They want to know that you're competent. You've been hired by the college, you have credentials. They want to stay on track with what's in the book. They don't like it when you are too unconventional, and they will confront you about it. They'll complain about it.
Just tell me what to memorize.
They just want to know that they're spending their time on what's expected, what they need for their program. They can graduate, get their job, and succeed. And they're very, very focused on that. And they don't want a bunch of loosey-goosey fiddling around,
So nothing that would be frivolous.
They don't want anything frivolous at all.
As far as their goals are concerned.
Right. And then there's the pressure to conform with the other teachers. That there's some sense to that if you're all teaching the same course, that it be, this person's version of it should be pretty close to that person's version of it. You understand? You want me to look at you or the camera?
Well, I'm shooting down lines. Just type that over.
Well, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so I was talking about there's pressure to conform when you're a teacher. And there's some sense to that. This student takes the course, it has a certain number, that student takes the course from a different person, it has the same number, you should be able to say, yeah, these were equivalent, you know, rather than, no, this person taught the electric universe and that person taught the conventional. That's just not going to go over real well.
Well, it would be a disservice to the curriculum needs to be consistent.
Yeah, you can see the sense of it.
Yeah. And now teachers, why? Okay, that is a reason. What about embarrassing yourself in front of your colleagues?
Yeah, the colleagues would,
You want to be held up for ridicule?
oh, well, right. There's a lot of pressure to agree, you know, among yourselves about what you're doing and how things work. So, to me, the best place for this at this point for the electric universe is in Saturday science centers, meeting after school with students that have shown interest, extra credit projects, that kind of thing.
So are you thinking of starting the Albuquerque Science Center? or you don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet?
Oh, thank you for asking. We'll think about that.
Are you thinking about that?
No, not at the moment.
Really?
I still have my student's hat on.
Oh, come on now. I got the impression that you're ready to put on your administrator's hat and be a facilitator for the
Yeah, I might go around, you know, collecting money for an institute or something like that.
That would be awesome.
It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be here.
Oh,
Actually, I think what would be wonderful is a program of visiting scholars, where it could be at any location, but a budget in which you can invite one of the people that you'd like to talk to and work with. You get a small group of people together and you learn together, sort of like a seminar. Does that sound like a good idea?
really great.
And all you have to do is put them up, you know, and pay them an honorarium, pay them for their time, and you may have to help with scholarships to help the students get there as well. But you could go to really interesting electric universe places, you know, of significance. You could go to Utah where there's so much geology, right? You could go
This is true.
to France
You wanna
and
keep it
look at the
Southwest,
last.
at least?
Well, no, it sounds like self-interest there.
Absolutely is. I love this.
What about the Lascaux Caves in France? We go over to France.
I've never been, so I can't say.
Go to the pyramids. How about
Definitely.
go down to the Yucatan?
Egypt doesn't seem like it would be a particularly desirable place.
No,
to
how
live.
about Yucatan?
Now that is Spanish down there. I'm
Yes.
pretty good with my Spanish.
Yes, they speak Spanish down there.
Pretty handy.
So you see what I mean? I think it's that would jazz me more than some stodgy institute, you know, that's stuck in a building
When I say
somewhere.
Formal institute. I get like a learning and discovery.
A learning institute. Example is the Santa Fe Institute. As far as I know, they don't have a building. They just have a concept, right? And then you are not stuck.
People contacting you back, be like, let's do that.
I think it's a great idea.
Well, tell them, not me.
Well, you and I are talking, so I'm talking to you.
But I can see that. That's everybody's so inspired. Being a hub person. Can you talk about that? We didn't talk about your hub yet.
All right, there were 7 of us. There were 3 to start with, and then we grew to 7. And they're all local people who we, you know, asked to be involved. Several of them had been to the conference in 2013. Some were new, and were speakers. A couple of them were speakers at 2014.
Can you tell us who?
Yeah, Ignacio Cisneros.
Who's
And Daniel Jenka were both speakers.
also cool.
Yeah. And the rest of us, well, what we did was we met at a different restaurant every time, and I think we met about every 2 weeks, if I recall. And we talked over, well, we spent a lot of time talking about the electric universe concepts and just having a wonderful time. And then a little bit of time for nuts and bolts kinds of issues. And then other times we had work sessions, several hours long, where we, hashed through the work that had to be done. For example, marketing. We spent a lot of time coming up with press releases, and Sally and Steve did a big job on getting a database full of teachers, database of professors. It didn't work. Didn't work at all. But how, who's to know?
Well, my thing is that I find accomplishment is much more satisfactory than reward. So
We did our best on that, and we didn't. We could have done better on marketing.
Used it for anything, or you used it for something and got?
Yeah, we were going to use it again if the conference was going to be in Albuquerque again. We would have our database in place. But it's going to be in Phoenix.
Yeah, I know. I was a little bummed about that.
So are we ready to cut this off?
Well, it's going to cut you off in about 2 minutes.
Well, that's good. Let's cut it.
Yeah?
Yeah.